I'm Thomas Anderson. At my son Nick's wedding, his new bride Stephanie Clark thought she had me cornered. She figured I was just some broke old guy scraping by in the Cedar Pines. HOA grateful she was even letting me in her perfect little world. She had no idea what she was about to unleash. Because sometimes the quiet ones who eat every ridiculous fine and smile through every violation notice pack the biggest punch. I just smiled and said, "We'll see about that, Stephanie." That smile should have been her first warning. For months, she'd been treating me like the neighborhood eyesore, mocking my Walmart shirts, rolling her eyes at my beat-up truck, whispering to Nick about his embarrassing father who kept dragging down property values. But then she crossed the line that actually mattered, threatening to keep my future grandchildren away from me. That crossed a line she didn't even know existed. If you're watching this, please subscribe and drop where you're watching from. What happened next changed everything for Nick, for Stephanie, and for anyone who thinks they can weaponize HOA rules against family. Let me paint the picture of how pathetic I must have looked to her. After my divorce from Linda in 2019, I deliberately chose to live small inside the Cedar Pines HOA. I bought a modest 3-bedroom ranch for cash, kept the payments tiny, and let the community think I was just another retiree on a fixed income. The place is from the 70s, thin walls, a driveway full of cracks the board loves to fine me for. My neighbors are mostly young professionals and retirees scraping by, while Stephanie, as the newly elected HOA president, sends out violation letters like party invitations. I drive that same 2011 Ford F-150 with 180,000 miles of rust spots. The radio only picks up AM. When it rains, the passenger seat still drips. Nick's embarrassed to be seen in it. My wardrobe comes from Walmart clearance. $1.29 polo shirts, $15 work boots that have seen better days. I shop with coupons and buy generic everything. To anyone in Cedar Pines, I look like a man who'd given up. And honestly, part of me had. When Linda left for her personal trainer after 28 years, she took more than half our assets. She took my confidence, my purpose, my belief that the sacrifices I'd made building Anderson Manufacturing meant anything. Nick was 30 when the divorce hit. He chose her side. "Dad, you just let yourself go," he told me. He wasn't wrong about how I looked, but he was dead wrong about why. I started dressing down and driving that old truck on purpose. I learned during the divorce that when people know you have money, they treat you like an ATM. Linda sure did. The trainer she married 3 months later suddenly loved her $3.1 million settlement. So I ran a test. What if everyone thought I had nothing? Would they love me for me or write me off? Nick wrote me off. Weekly dinners became monthly calls, then birthday cards with $20 bills. He moved in with Stephanie 6 months before the wedding. She's a preschool teacher. He's a software engineer making 95 grand. Not struggling, but not rich either. When Nick brought her to meet me the first time, I watched her eyes sweep my modest yard. The secondhand grill, the generic everything, the stack of HOA violation notices on the kitchen table that Stephanie herself had signed. "So you're retired?" she asked, though Nick had never called me a mechanic. "Must be nice," she replied, tone dripping with pity. From that moment, Stephanie Clark made it clear I was dead weight, an embarrassing reminder of Nick's modest roots. Someone to manage, not respect. But here's where the HOA Karen mask slipped on perfectly. 6 months earlier, she'd run for president on a platform of raising standards. Within weeks, the fine started. My truck violates vehicle appearance standards. My lawn exceeds allowed height by 0.2 inches. My house paint fades outside approved palette. Each letter ended with the same cheerful threat. Compliance required within 14 days or daily fines of $100 begin. She'd stand at monthly meetings in her pastel blazer, smiling like a saint while lecturing. "Some residents are bringing down our property values with their vintage vehicles and budget lifestyles." Everyone knew she meant me. Nick would laugh uncomfortably, but never defend me. I was becoming invisible in my own son's life, just like I'd planned. Being underestimated is the most powerful position you can occupy. The thing about watching your family slip away while the HOA Karen piles on fines is that you tell yourself it's temporary. That Nick would eventually see through Stephanie's act. That he'd realize what really mattered. But as their wedding approached, I started understanding what I was really going to lose. Nick and I used to talk about everything. After his mother and I married, he was the reason I worked 70-hour weeks building Anderson Manufacturing from a garage into a real company. Every late night, every missed dinner, every sacrifice was so Nick would have opportunities one never had. Now he barely spoke. The wedding invitation came addressed to Thomas Anderson and guest. No mention of father of the groom. Stephanie had planned this for 8 months. Every detail calculated to show their friends they were moving up. The venue alone was costing them $8,000. The Cedar Pines HOA clubhouse, open bar, professional photographer. Nick was paying for most of it. Savings wiped out, credit cards maxed. Meanwhile, Stephanie kept dropping hints. Good families help young couples get started, she'd say when I was around. My friend Ashley's parents put down 20% on their house. The house she'd picked was a $565,000 colonial right here in Cedar Pines. 4 bedrooms, granite counters, the kind that requires parents with deep pockets. I knew what was coming. The awkward ask. The humiliation. The confirmation in Stephanie's mind that I was exactly the disappointment she thought I was. But there was something bigger at stake than my pride. Stephanie had been talking about children nonstop. 3 kids. Family support essential. Children need grandparents who contribute, who are positive influences. The threat was clear. Prove your value or get cut out. Nick was already pulling away. If Stephanie had babies and decided I wasn't worth keeping around, especially with her HOA power to ban non-compliant residents from community events and playgrounds, I'd lose my son forever. I'd never meet my grandchildren. Everything I'd built would die with me. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd hidden my wealth to test love. But the test was backfiring. The people I loved most were walking away because they thought I had nothing to offer. I could have written Nick a check years ago, bought the house, made life easier, but then I'd never know if his love was real. Now I was running out of time. 3 days before the wedding, Nick called. Dad, I need to ask you something, but I don't want you to feel pressured. Here it came. Stephanie and I found the perfect home in Cedar Pines, but the down payment, if you could help with even a small amount. How much? I asked. Ideally $113,000 for 20% down. I spent more than that on dinner parties when I was married to Linda. I'll think about it, I said. But I already knew this was my last chance. Either I'd find out if Nick truly loved me, or I'd lose him forever. The confrontation came during cocktail hour at the wedding, September 23rd, 3:15 p.m. I was standing near the bar in the Cedar Pines HOA clubhouse, nursing a Coke, watching Nick greet guests. Stephanie appeared beside me in her $3,200 Vera Wang dress. She looked like money, which was the point. Beautiful ceremony, I said. We need to talk. She led me to a quiet corner near the windows overlooking the community park. Nick had told her he asked me about the house. Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Let me help you think faster. That house isn't just about Nick and me. It's about our future children, your future grandchildren. Do you understand, Thomas? Nick deserves better than your example. Living in that with your truck parked out front violating every vehicle standard, your lawn that keeps earning fines. Nick's embarrassed by you. He makes excuses when friends ask about his family. Each word hit because there was truth in it. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to help us with that house. Not a loan, a gift. Because good fathers invest in their children's futures. And if you don't, I'll make sure Nick understands exactly what kind of man his father really is. Selfish, bitter, a man who puts his own grudges ahead of his son's happiness. She leaned in. There's more. Nick and I want children soon. 3 of them. They need stability, a safe neighborhood, good schools, and grandparents who add value. Financial support, babysitting, college funds. But if you're going to be a burden instead of a blessing, my parents live in Portland. They'd love to be the primary grandparents. The threat was crystal clear. Pay up or get cut out. especially with her HOA power to enforce guest restrictions and community event bans against non-compliant residents like me. Nick loves you, she said softly. But love only goes so far when someone refuses to help family when they choose to hoard money while their children struggle. How much do you have saved up, Thomas? Honestly, after the divorce and years of living like you do, there must be something left. She'd done her homework, sort of. She knew about the business sale. She just had the numbers wrong by about 12 million. The house offer expires Monday. The seller has other interested buyers. If we lose it because you're too cheap to help, she let the sentence hang. What exactly are you asking for? The full down payment. $113,000. Consider it an investment in your future access to grandchildren. An investment in access. Like my relationship with my future grandkids was a business transaction. And if I say no, then I guess we'll see how important family really is to you. Her smile was poison sweet. Nick's watching us. He's hoping you'll do the right thing. Don't disappoint him again. I looked across the room. Nick was watching, try to read our body language. 20 years building a business, 31 years being his father, and it came down to this. Prove your worth with a check or lose him forever. I'll give you my answer tonight, I said. Perfect. During your father of the groom toast. Make it public. Show everyone what kind of father you really are. She walked away, leaving me alone with my Coke and my thoughts. But Stephanie Clark, HOA president and gold digger extraordinaire, had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She'd given me a public platform. Two things happened that should have warned her. First, my phone rang during the photo session. It was Patricia Hayes, my private investigator. Everything's finalized, bank statements, property records, the whole package, plus that additional research on Miss Clark. 3 previous engagements, just like you suspected. And the HOA records from her last 3 communities are devastating. I'd hired Patricia 6 months ago, right after Stephanie started the fines and the comments about family financial support. Something felt too calculated. The documentation was in the leather portfolio behind the bar. Judge Brooks confirmed he'd be available. Judge Henry Brooks, my old friend, resident of Cedar Pines, the man who'd officiated the wedding as a favor and knew exactly what Thomas Anderson was worth. The second warning came during the reception entrance. Judge Brooks caught my eye and walked over loud enough for nearby guests, including Stephanie, to hear. Tom Anderson, good to see you. Still keeping busy with your investments? The commercial real estate market has been very good to you. Stephanie's head turned. Confusion flickered across her face. Why would a judge be talking to the broke guy about investments? After he walked away, she appeared at my elbow. How do you know Judge Brooks? Rotary Club. We've been members for years. She didn't look convinced, but Nick was calling her for photos. The truth was Henry had handled my legal affairs since 2015, structured the business sale, set up Nick's trust fund, drafted my commercial property paperwork. If anyone knew the real Thomas Anderson, it was Henry Brooks. And he'd agreed to officiate specifically to witness whatever was about to happen. My phone buzzed. Text from Patricia. Documentation in the leather portfolio. Nancy Miller confirmed she'll have a mic ready. Nancy, the wedding planner and former event coordinator for my old company, knew exactly who I was. The pieces were falling into place. Dinner was announced. Nick and Stephanie took their seats at the head table. I was relegated to table 7 near the back with distant cousins. Perfect. Stephanie wanted me to feel small and powerless. She had no idea the most dangerous person in the room is the one everyone ignores. As the salad course was served, I excused myself, walked to the bar, and slipped the leather portfolio under my jacket. Inside was enough documentation to change the entire evening. Dinner service started at 5:30. Chicken or salmon, $85 a plate. The kind of detail that matters when you're stretching every dollar to impress the HOA crowd. I ordered chicken. Stephanie went with salmon. Top shelf, all the way. The speeches began during dessert. Best man first, maid of honor second, then parents. Linda spoke via video from Phoenix. Then it was Stephanie's turn. She stood gracefully, champagne glass in hand, and smiled at the 152 guests. In the soft lighting, she looked radiant, innocent, like the sweet preschool teacher and devoted community leader she claimed to be. Thank you all for celebrating with Nick and me tonight. This day wouldn't have been possible without the love and support of family. Her eyes swept the room. Nick and I are so grateful to everyone who's contributed to making our dreams come true. Some families believe in investing in the next generation. They understand that when young couples get a strong start, everyone benefits. The crowd ate it up. We've been so blessed by the generous families here tonight. Families who understand what it means to put love into action. Another pause, another round of polite clapping. Then her eyes found mine. Of course, not everyone shows love the same way. Some people prefer to hold back, to test relationships instead of investing in them. But Nick and I believe families should lift each other up, not hold each other down. The room quieted. That's why we're so hoping that Nick's father will find it in his heart to help us with our next chapter, to show that family support means more than just showing up. It means showing up with real investment in our future. The room went dead silent. This wasn't a typical wedding speech anymore. This was a public shaming wrapped in HOA president politeness. Nick and I have found the perfect home right here in Cedar Pines. A place where our children, Thomas's future grandchildren, can grow up safe and loved. But dreams require support. They require family members who are willing to put their money where their loving is. 152 pairs of eyes turned toward me. So, I'd like to raise a glass to Thomas Anderson and to the decision he'll be making tonight. The decision that will show all of us what kind of grandfather he wants to be. She raised her glass. To family investment and the courage to choose love over selfishness. The toast was drunk. Polite applause followed. But the discomfort was obvious. People whispered. Nick looked mortified. Even Stephanie's own parents seemed uncomfortable with their daughter's public ultimatum. She sat down satisfied. The trap was set. In front of 152 witnesses, she'd made it clear that Thomas Anderson's love would be measured by his willingness to write a check, while she held the HOA hammer over my head. Now was my turn. I stood slowly. Nancy Miller appeared beside me, with a wireless mic right on cue. The room quieted. Thank you, Stephanie. That was illuminating. A few nervous chuckles. People expected an awkward defensive response from the cornered old man. I do appreciate being put on the spot like that in front of all these lovely people. It shows real character. Nick tried to catch my eye, hoping I'd sit down. I was just getting started. Family support is important. You're absolutely right about that, Stephanie, and I've been thinking about your request, your demand, really. The room was dead silent. This was not going according to her script. See, you want me to prove my love for Nick by buying you a $565,000 house here in Cedar Pines, to be precise. You want me to put up the $113,000 down payment as a gift, not a loan. And you've made it clear what happens if I don't. I lose access to my future grandchildren. I get cut out of Nick's life, replaced by your parents in Portland who would love to be the primary grandparents. Murmurs rippled. But here's the thing about family support, Stephanie. It goes both ways. When you join a family, you're supposed to add to it, not subtract from it. You're supposed to bring people together, not drive them apart. Especially not by using your position as HOA president to slap daily fines on your own father-in-law for a truck that's older than your marriage. Nick started to stand. Judge Brooks gestured for him to sit. So before I answer your very public request, I continued, reaching into my jacket for the leather portfolio, I think our guests deserve to know exactly what kind of family support they're witnessing tonight. The portfolio hit the table with a soft thud. Stephanie went pale. Because you're right about one thing. This is about love versus selfishness. And it's time everyone here learned which one of us is which. The leather portfolio sat on the table like a bomb. Stephanie stared at it, and for the first time all evening, she wasn't in control. You did your research on me, didn't you, Stephanie? I said, opening it slowly. Anderson Manufacturing. You found out about the sale. You found out about my divorce. You thought you had the whole picture. I pulled out the first document, bank letterhead, official seals, numbers that made people gasp. But here's what you missed. Anderson Manufacturing sold for exactly $15.2 million on December 18, 2018. I held up the sale contract. Judge Brooks nodded confirmation. After taxes and fees, I netted $12.8 million. Then came the divorce. Linda took $3.1 million plus the house plus half the retirement accounts. That left me with $9.7 million in liquid assets. I pulled out the second document, a bank statement from Pinnacle Private Banking. Current liquid assets as of September 20th, 2023, $12.1 million. The gasps were audible. Nick looked like he'd been hit by a truck. You see, Stephanie, I didn't lose the money. I invested it. I've been living off the returns while the principal grew, $400,000 a year in passive income. That's about $33,000 a month. For perspective, that's more than double what Nick makes. The room was dead silent. But wait, there's more, I continued. Because the business sale wasn't my only investment. Document number 3, property deeds. 3 commercial buildings in Cedar Rapids purchased between 2019 and 2022. Total current value, $2.8 million. Monthly rental income, $31,000. I looked directly at Stephanie. Her face had gone ashen. So, when you demanded I prove my love by writing a check for $113,000, you were asking me to spend about 1 month's income. The math hit like a physical force. People were calculating exactly how wealthy the broke HOA violator actually was. But here's my favorite part, I said, pulling out document number 4. Nick's trust fund, the one I established for you in 2020. $2.3 million, fully vested when you turn 35, which is in 4 years. Nick stood up. What trust fund? The one designed to give you security without making you dependent. It can be dissolved, however, if the beneficiary makes decisions contrary to family values, like threatening to cut family members out of children's lives. That would be grounds for dissolution. Judge Brooks had drafted it personally. So to answer your question, Stephanie, yes, I absolutely have the money to buy you that house. I could buy you 10 houses. I could pay cash for the entire Cedar Pines neighborhood if I wanted to. I walked closer. But you made one crucial mistake. You assumed having money means I'm obligated to spend it on people who threaten my family relationships with HOA fines and grandkid ultimatums. Now for the kill shot. I pulled out the final document. Patricia Hayes, private investigator. 3 months of research into one Stephanie Clark, age 29, formerly Rebecca Martinez, formerly Amanda Peterson, formerly Sarah Williams. Stephanie's champagne glass shattered onto her dress. 3 previous engagements to men from wealthy families. 3 previous demands for house down payments. And here's the HOA twist you didn't expect. 3 previous communities where you served as president and used the exact same playbook, targeting undesirable residents with fines while pressuring their families for cash. The Patterson family in Iowa City, the Mitchell family in Des Moines, the Johnson family in Davenport, all have identical stories about their son's loving girlfriend who became very interested in family financial support once wedding planning and HOA elections began. I spread the photos and previous HOA violation records across the table. Stephanie with previous fiancés at expensive restaurants, always with men who looked like they came for money, plus copies of her past presidency minutes where she'd pushed through emergency assessments that conveniently funded her lifestyle. Nick stared at his new wife like he'd never seen her before. Stephanie, or Rebecca, or Amanda, or Sarah, you picked the wrong family this time because this family does its homework. Judge Brooks stepped forward. As officiant, I feel obligated to mention that marriage contracts can be annulled within 72 hours if one party has committed fraud regarding identity or intentions. So here's my counteroffer, I said, returning to the mic. Nick, your trust fund remains intact. Your inheritance remains intact. You'll never have to worry about money because you chose love over greed. I turned back to Stephanie. But you get exactly what you've earned. Nothing. No house, no trust fund access, no financial support from his family. And if you even think about following through on your threat to keep future grandchildren away, or using your HOA position to keep finding me out of the neighborhood, I'll make sure every family in Iowa knows exactly who you are and what you do with power. The portfolio closed with a soft snap. Now, then, who wants to toast a real family? The kind that doesn't come with a price tag or an HOA fine schedule. The silence after my toast lasted exactly 7 seconds. Then chaos erupted. Stephanie shot to her feet, knocking over her chair. This is insane, Nick. He's lying. Those documents are fake. But Nick wasn't looking at her anymore. He was staring at me with shock, hurt, and something that might have been understanding. Dad, is this real? All of it. Every word. Judge Brooks stepped forward with calm authority. I can verify the authenticity of these documents. I personally handled the business sale, the trust fund, and the property acquisitions. Mr. Anderson is worth considerably more than $15 million when you include his real estate holdings. Stephanie wheeled on Nick. You have to choose right now between me and this manipulative old man who's been lying to you for years. Nick looked between us. Why hide this? Why live like you do? Why let me think you were broke? It was the question I'd been dreading. Because I needed to know if you loved me or my money. The words hit him like a blow. And what did you conclude? That you loved your mother's money enough to choose her side in the divorce. That you loved Stephanie's validation enough to let her insult me for months and let her slap me with HOA fines while I stayed silent. And that you were willing to ask me for $113,000 while thinking I could barely afford it. Nick flinched at each point because they were true. But you also asked it as a loan, not a gift. You offered to pay me back. And you called me Dad when you asked, not Thomas. That told me something too. That you still love me. You're just young and stupid and head over heels for a woman who was playing you. Stephanie tried one last desperate play. Nick, don't let him manipulate you. He's trying to control your life with money. No, Nick said, voice stronger. He's trying to protect his life from people who want to control him with threats and HOA rules. He turned to face her fully. Is it true about the other families? Those are lies. Private investigators can fake anything. But her protest sounded hollow. The evidence was too detailed. Her reaction told the whole story. Judge Brooks cleared his throat. If I may suggest, this discussion might be better continued privately. We have 150 guests witnessing some very personal family matters. I'll walk back to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for disrupting what should have been a celebration, but sometimes family business becomes public when someone makes it public. I looked directly at Stephanie. You wanted a public answer to your public demand. Here it is. The Anderson family does not negotiate with extortion. We do not reward threats, and we do not buy relationships. I turned to Nick. Son, your trust fund is secure. Your inheritance is secure. Your relationship with me is secure. The only thing that's not secure is a marriage based on fraud. Nick looked at Stephanie one last time. Is any of it true about your name? About the other families? She could have come clean. Instead, she doubled down. I don't have to listen to this, Nick. If you believe him over me, then we're done. It was the worst possible response. An ultimatum when she had no leverage left. Nick's answer was quiet but firm. Then we're done. The marriage lasted exactly 4 hours and 37 minutes. Judge Brooks stepped forward. Given the circumstances and the evidence of fraudulent intent, I'm prepared to expedite an annulment hearing if Mr. Nick Anderson wishes to file. I do, Nick said. Stephanie spat. Fine. Keep your pathetic family and your dirty money. I never loved either of you anyway. She grabbed her purse and stalked toward the exit, her borrowed wedding dress trailing. A few guests actually applauded as she left. The door slammed. The reverberations echoed through the HOA clubhouse. Nick sat down heavily and put his head in his hands. I walked over and sat beside him. You okay? Am I okay, Dad? I just found out my wife is a fraud and my father is a millionaire in the same 5 minutes at my wedding reception with 150 people watching. For what it's worth, I said, I would have told you about the money eventually, probably when you turned 35 and got the trust fund. I just wanted you to build your own life first. He looked up at me, at the apartment. No, at the modest HOA home, the truck, the Walmart clothes. All real. I like living simply. Money doesn't have to change how you live if you don't let it. He started laughing. I just married a gold digger who is after money you don't even spend. That's pretty ironic. Yeah, it really was. The wedding ended at 7:20, 2 hours ahead of schedule. Word travels fast in Cedar Pines. By Sunday morning, the story was everywhere. The wedding photographer had posted a few choice moments before realizing what she'd captured. Wedding drama rocks. HOA Clubhouse became the local paper's Monday front page. The fallout was immediate. Stephanie's teaching position came under review. The school district takes moral character seriously. Defrauding families doesn't qualify. By Tuesday, she was on administrative leave. Her landlord received calls from previous victims. She was evicted Wednesday. Nick moved back into his apartment, but the wedding had wiped his savings and maxed his cards. Over coffee Tuesday morning, he told me, I feel like an idiot. How did I not see it? She was good at what she did. Professional manipulation requires skill. But the signs were there, the way she talked about money, the way she researched our family, the way she weaponized HOA rules against you. He stopped. The way she talked about you. I should have defended you. I'm sorry, Dad. It was the apology I'd waited 3 years to hear. Why didn't you? Because she made me feel ashamed of our family, of you. She'd talk about her friends whose parents were lawyers and doctors. Then look at your truck and your fines and your clothes. What changed your mind? Watching you at that podium. Watching you take control. You didn't have to expose her like that. You could have just written a check. But you chose principles over peace. Sometimes principles matter more than peace. I'm learning that. 3 months later, Nick and I were having dinner at Romano's. The annulment had gone through without a hitch. Stephanie had quietly left Cedar Pines and, according to Patricia, was now working as a community consultant in Phoenix. Different title, same scam. The other family she'd targeted had mixed results, but word had spread through social media, and her future hunting ground were limited. How's the new apartment? I asked. Good. Having actual savings again feels incredible. He'd insisted on earning it himself. The trust fund could wait until he was 35. The lesson had been learned. Any dating prospects? Actually, yeah. Her name's Rachel. She's a veterinarian. What does she think about your family situation? Nick grinned. I told her my dad was worth about $18 million, and she asked if you were single. I laughed. But seriously, she doesn't care about the money. When I told her the whole Stephanie story, her main reaction was concern about whether I was okay, emotionally. That's a good sign. We ordered dessert. Are you lonely living in that HOA house, driving that truck, shopping at Walmart? Sometimes, I admitted, but I'm lonely by choice, not circumstance. There's a difference. What's the difference? Lonely by circumstance means you can't find people who want to be around you. Lonely by choice means you're waiting for people who want to be around you for the right reasons. I pulled out my phone and showed him a text. Speaking of which, I've been thinking about this. Property available. 47-acre ranch outside Marion. Previous owner passed away peacefully. Family want quick sale. $890,000. A ranch. 47 acres. Farmhouse, barn, workshop, pond, apple orchard. 20 minutes from town, but feels like another world. I want to build something. Not for profit, for purpose. Maybe a place where families can come for retreats. Maybe a workshop for teaching business skills to young entrepreneurs. Maybe just a place where people can remember what matters. Nick studied the photos. This looks expensive to maintain. Less expensive than you'd think, and a lot more meaningful than watching investment portfolios grow. What about the apartment, the truck, the simple living philosophy? I can live simply on a ranch too. Simple doesn't mean small. Simple means intentional. He handed my phone back. When are you going to look at it? This weekend. Want to come with me? Absolutely. As we walked to the parking lot, Nick stopped. Dad, thank you for not giving up on me, for not writing me off when I chose Stephanie's side. You're my son. I wasn't going anywhere. Even when you were being an idiot, especially when you were being an idiot, that's when kids need their parents most. Nick hugged me, the first real hug since before the divorce. I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. As we drove away in our separate cars, his modest sedan, my beat-up truck, I thought about boundaries. The lines we draw to protect ourselves and the people we care about. Stephanie had tried to erase mine with threats and HOA fines and grandkid ultimatums. But boundaries aren't walls meant to keep people out. They're fences meant to help people understand how to love you properly. Nick was learning that lesson. So was I. And maybe on a 47-acre ranch outside Marion, we could both practice it together. Sometimes the quiet ones don't just pack the biggest punch. Sometimes they build the strongest foundations too.